So, as the title says, we're going to be making one of these. You could turn it and make it look like this. So let's get started. So the magic behind making this 3D map is actually something that NASA did back in 2000. They actually ran their shuttle with a radar that scanned pretty much the whole globe. And that's the link to make this very easy so that we don't actually have to create this in 3D and make, a custom mesh or anything like that. It's all driven by this data, which is the really cool thing. So there's a couple of things that you're gonna have to get, but first we have to find a location. So you just go to Google Maps and you find the location. I was first going to do the mountain, and then I was like, no, I kind of want to have like a mountainous area. So then I was like looking right next to it, and there's this little like village that's down the road from the big mountain. And this mountain, if we take a look at this and we go into 3D, and then if you hold, I think it's Control and move your mouse around, you can see all of this elevation. And this is pretty much what we want to make. And yes, you could, record this and bring this in, but it's not an actual 3D element. We can't do cool things like dynamic lighting and being able to move it around and actually have it be a 3D element itself. So that's what kind of makes this really cool. So I had to first pick my location, and then I said, hey, this looks cool because it's like, you have all of this like little city stuff down here, and you have these mountains coming from all these different directions. I was like, that's pretty cool. And so I first started this I found a website that got rid of like the majority of like the names and stuff, but I quickly found out that, the closer you zoom in, the higher the resolution. So if I took a picture of, let's say I want to do this whole thing, and I size it, let's get north the correct way like that, and I size it up and I took a picture of this, it was only the resolution of my screen. So I had to figure out a way around that, and we'll get to how I did that. But so we first pick our location. Then once we find our location, and I have all the links in the description for this. So then the next thing we have to do is go over to this terrain party. And this website's really not that great, but what it does behind the scenes is actually very powerful. So we're just gonna zoom out, and we're gonna take this little square to where our location is. My location's right over in here, and we're going to flip the map view so we can actually see it. And I'm actually in the wrong area down here. So here's the mountain that we had before, and then we're going to come right here where the village is. And we can change the size of the final image that we're getting. Now this is going to adjust the resolution of this image and not so much the size of the image. So all the sizes of the image are going to be the same, but how dense the resolution of that image. So the blurry bits compared to the sharp bits. Obviously, when you make this really big is when it starts to become a better image, but I don't think we need that much. So I'm just going to go like that. Then you click this button, and then it just asks you, what do you want to call this? So I'll just call it hood because that's the location. And then in the background, it's getting all the different variations of it. And boom, here are my images. The only one we're going to be really worried about is the merged, because it just takes all the data and it adds them together. And then this is the image that we get. And this is the part that really makes everything easy, because the next thing we can do is we can take a mesh, a plane mesh, which is just a flat, and then we can state these luminance values as a different height point. So the brighter it gets, the taller it gets. So we'll come back to that here in a second. And then the next thing that we need is we actually need the texture that we're going to put over that mesh. Now, like I said, I could come into here and just take a picture, but the resolution's not going to be that good. And you have to remember that we're going to be taking a flat image and we're going to be stretching it and warping it. So it's going to look real funky if whatever your screen resolution is. So I'm like recording right now in 1080. If I just take a shot of this, obviously this image is going to be really low resolution. So the next link is right in here, and all we're going to do is we're going to zoom this out to where our location is. And here's our location, here's our mountain, and here is where we want, right? Then now we need to tell this how big we want an image. How many pixels do we want this to be? So over here I have 5,000 by 5,000, and then I set that as the dimension, and now we're all out of whack, right? There's a couple of things you can do to make this a little easier. The first thing, we're going to click this button to close it. And what it's done, simplest way to explain this is it's made the website that resolution, 5,000 by 5,000, right? So now we have scroll bars compared to over here when we're actually looking at Google. We just zoom out, zoom in, and move around. The website is whatever the size of the browser. Here, the website is the size of whatever we set that as. So I'm going to zoom out, and right here's my location. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring this into the middle point here, and bring this over to the middle point here. I'm going to find that location again, which is right here. Now I can zoom in and get the resolution that I want. So like, let's say that's the resolution, that real sharp, great looking stuff. Now I have to just make sure that these boundaries here, that when I go up, so here's my line, here's the line here. So I might want to do one zoom out and move this over. Now if I bring this to the middle, that's in the middle, and then coming down to the bottom, it's kind of hard to pick something specific, but we have this road, and that goes down in between the two mountains, so it's like a little thing right here. So I'm guessing that's this road here, the highway. So I think that this is good because in the middle I have like the town, and then going all the way up I have at least this. I don't think I can see the actual mountain. So that seems fine. So now that I have this, what you need to do now is you need to take a picture of this whole thing, this whole website. In the description, there's a link to download an extension for Chrome to take a picture of your whole website. So now, like I said, it thinks that this is a whole website, right? All the way up and down, left and right. But how Google Maps works is the more you zoom in, the higher resolution you get. So now if I click this button and say capture the entire page, it's going to jump around and take a screenshot of each part. And then once it's done, it's going to stitch all of those together, and then I'll have one really big image. So now it's just taking them, stitching them all together. Once it does that, another page pops up. It says, okay, here's your whole image. So there's my whole image. It's pretty big. I probably could have went up a little bit. Actually, I think I'm going to go up because there's like a mountain up here and I have way too much down here. So we're just going to close that. And all I'm going to do is just come up and then just pull it up. I would say like that maybe. And then going down, okay, I'm going to go up maybe a little bit more. And you just have to remember, when you're at the top, that's going to be the top of your image. When you scroll down, that's going to be the bottom. But don't move around in the screen because then you're shifting where the image is actually going to be, if that makes sense. So I'm still in the middle and I have my town here. Let's see, up, okay, down. I have this mountain over here, if you remember. I have this mountain over here. If you need some help for like locations, you can come back over and you can zoom in. And remember, come into here. We can move this around. You can see we got our one mountain here. Here is the other mountain. There was that little connection that we were looking at with the trucks just sitting there. So that's in between these two mountains. So I think where I'm at right now is probably good. So in the middle, come over to the middle. I still got this in the middle. Okay, good. Let's take another picture. Now, in the top corners, all the Google stuff will still be there, so that's up to you if you want to get rid of that. But the next part is going to kind of make us get rid of it. So, but you just so you know that those are going to be a part of the image. So now we got one, and this looks a little bit better. We have this mountain here. We have this mountain. Scroll down, we have this mountain, and we have this mountain over here. So now we're just going to save this as a PDF. And sure, it just made a little folder in my downloads. So now we have these two images, and because there isn't anything that I could find that you can get identical copies of one another, what we need to do is we need to make them identical so that we can easily map them to each other. So all we're gonna do is go into Photoshop, make one transparent, get the other one to sit on top, and where they both overlap, we're just gonna cut that out and use that as a usable image. Okay, once we're in DaVinci, we're gonna bring both of our images into DaVinci. So here we go. Gonna come over into Fusion. And I'm gonna go new Fusion clip. I'm actually gonna change this one to, let's do 10 seconds. And I think 30 frames. You can set yours whatever you want. If we double click on this one, you'll know it's open when you see the media out. Then you can bring both of these in and we can view them. Bam, bam. Now you'll see that if we zoom out here, we can see our resolution, but now this is in a box. And the reason why it's in a box is because the settings are set up for DaVinci and not so much Fusion. So there's one setting you have to do is over here, is you have to go into image scale and change this to center crop. So that means that it just won't rescale it. So if I was to add those onto the edit page, they would be like really big instead of scaling to fit within the frame. So now I have them both here. First thing I'm gonna do is bring in an image plane, bring in a camera, and bring in a renderer. I'm gonna connect the camera to the image plane and connect the merge to the renderer. And then we're going to look at both of these, and whichever one is the colored one, we're gonna bring that into their image plane. And now if we take this merge and we play the merge up here, what we'll see is that it's standing straight up and down. I'm gonna click on my camera, pull my camera back. Now this image plane, I'm gonna click on that. I'm gonna come over to change the rotation, and I'm just gonna put this to -90, so now it's sitting flat. So now if I was to look at this through the camera's eyes, I don't see anything. Okay, well, it's probably because it's sitting perfectly flat with the camera. If I was to pull this up a little bit, now play it, we'll see it here. So let's close this, play the image over there. And the next thing that we have to do is now we have to take this data that is going to change the height of everything, and we need to add that in. So you're just gonna hit Shift Spacebar and bring this up, and just gonna type in displace, and we're gonna get this displace 3D. We're gonna add that in and then connect that up. Once that's connected up, we're just going to take in our data that's gonna do our height, and we're gonna connect that in, and boom, it did some crazy stuff. So let's just view it like here. So this is where we're currently at. The first thing that we can do is we're gonna come into our displace and we're gonna drop this down. So let's play this over here. And I'll just zoom in a little bit here. And we can tell that it's kind of pretty jagged, right? It doesn't look all that great to begin with, but it's pretty jagged. Let's pull back our camera a little bit. So let's come over here, pull our camera back and maybe up. And then we'll tilt it down just a little bit so we can actually see what that looks like. So that's currently what we're working with. And now if we come over to our image plane, what we can do is we can change the divisions, and that's just how many different locations will be a point to add height. So if we were to look at this where it normally was at, we can see it's just very few points, right? Very few points, like it goes up and then down. I don't know if you can see that, but it's very few points. So we just need to increase those points. So if I keep this big so you can see this, and I come into here, let's just change this to 50 points. So now it got a little bit more jagged, right? But let's go to 300. And now it's looking a little bit better, but it's still like all over the place. So we're just going to bring this down to a comfortable amount. And now let's just go to one view so it makes it a little easier to see. Whoa. All right, so if we look at this, this is starting to look more like, you know, like it was on Google Earth, right? That's looking a little bit better. We could bring this down a little bit more, so let's just come down to like 1. I think that looks more reasonable. That's looking a bit better. Now the other thing that you've seen is that I had these corners closed off. I did a little trick to do that. So if that is something that you want to do and, you know, make it sort of the same as mine, so let's just bring in a background so we can see what this looks like sitting on, you know, a nice background. And let's change this background to some like a nice color. Sure. So this background, oh gosh, so this obviously you can see through here, right? So we want to fix that a little bit. So like how this works is it's, you know, the darker it is, the lower it goes. So all I did to do this is I just brought in another background and I just looked at the resolution here and I came into this background and I just turned off auto resolution, and this is 40, and I'm just gonna add 10 to each side. So 4173. So now this is 10 frames around, 5 on each side, bigger. And what I can do now is take this node and put it on top of the bigger node and then bring that in. So now if I look at this, there's like a little edge that goes around, right? But this is counting like, that's gonna be as low as possible compared to the rest of this. And then I can take that same node, copy it and paste it down here and do the same thing in here and connect that up. And then what I did for this one is I just made it like a dark brown. So something like that. And now if we look at this, now we have that little bit of black there. And you can do like little things to inch up this this black. So you could come into here and this is a merge, so it's gonna move the foreground image, and you could just simply slowly move this. Obviously you don't want to have it like higher than the edge, but I feel like that would probably be good. Let's make this a little darker. So something like that. So that's kind of all I did there to make it go around and make it look like a box, right? And the cool thing with this is because this is 3D, we could add in lights if we wanted to. We could take this and, oops, add in a light, and we can just pull our light out and like pull it up, tilt it down on everything. Let's go 2 views and view the, this is the actual renderer, but we're gonna come into the renderer and turn on lights and shadows, and we can see it down here. And if we come over into here, let's click on our light, pull our light back and up. we can see it's kind of like illuminating over here, and we can turn up, let's turn up the intensity to 2, make it brighter, and then we can make our cone bigger. Bring this out. And one thing you can see here is that it's like, it almost looks like a gloss. So we can come into our image plane and then come into specular and turn this all the way down so we don't get that at all. But now we have almost like a dynamic light. So if we were to take this, you know, down, let's actually bring it over to the side so our viewer can see this. If we were to bring this over now and have it look over here, we can see it's casting shadows on the far sides of the mountain. So we bring this down. Oop, a little too low. We can see it like it's lighting up the sides, obviously, that are from that side, but it's casting shadows on everything else. So you could do like really cool things in the background. You could put, you know, stars or whatever. You could obviously tint the light to make it look however you want, or you could do something where this light, you know, travels throughout the day, or on top of that, you could come in here. So all of this is like going into our merge here. So because our image plane and our displace are all like one little thing. So like, let's just take all this. This is our whole 3D element. We could come into this displace, and after this, do a transform 3D, and then we could just take this and we could just rotate this, and obviously we're, you know, affecting how the light's being cast on this. Like you can see this side of the mountain is completely dark, but that side isn't. So there's a ton of different things that you could do with this. Obviously this isn't looking so hot. Maybe I would even bring an ambient light in just so it lights up everything else, but bring this intensity down so at least we have light on the rest of these other parts here. Maybe you could make it a different color. I don't know, but that's kind of how you would do that. And because this is a 3D element, now you could track this to different things if you wanted to. So yeah, there you go, you know, little camera movement. Move your lighting around just a little bit. Add a little ambient light in there with a little background. Perfect. You could just, I don't know, get this to spin or something, and, you know, you could sell a new apartment building right there and tell people about this new area that they can all move to and live. So I don't know what to use this for yet. I was thinking of doing something a little more cartoony, because we could also get 3D houses and put 3D houses on something, or I don't know. I haven't quite figured that out yet. But if you know, let me know in the comment area. And with that being said, my name's JR, and thanks for watching.